Good morning, everybody. Today is March 3rd, 2026, and this is your weekly Muckboots in the Capital state legislative update for Oregon in with Friends of Family Farmers. My name is Alice Morrison. I'm the co-executive director of Friends of Family Farmers, and I'm in charge of our policy program. So I will be giving you an update on where we are. And this week is the last week of the legislative session here in Oregon. We are racing toward the end of the short session. We have a biennial legislative calendar here, so our even numbered year sessions are only about 35 days long. So we are almost to the end. So first, we're just going to do a little check of where we are in the calendar, what's left to be done. Then we'll go over two of our priority bills for this session and talk about budget reduction packages at the end. Okay, so at this point in the session, today is March 3rd. The sine die is Sunday, March 8th. Today is March 3rd. And that's it. There's 5 days left. That's it. There's no more. Um, so we have seen all policy committees are no longer meeting. Policy committees are those topic area committees that are subject to those calendars we've been talking about all session. There are exceptions for the rules, revenue, and ways and means committees, but over in ways and means, all subcommittees are now closed. They're only meeting in the full committee. So all of those places where policy discussion could be had in like the natural resource subcommittee, which is usually where our stuff goes, or the capital construction subcommittee, where some of our things went anyway this year, that is all concluded, and they are only meeting in the full Ways and Means Committee, and it's that time in the session where they're pushing things through. So full Ways and Means Committees, rules committees, and floor sessions are the only things on the calendar consistently for the last few days of the session. And as I said, the sine die, which is a Latin term for the end, the conclusion, that is the constitutional end of the session, and that is on Sunday, March 8th. So they have to have everything wrapped up. They may be working over the weekend if they can't resolve some of the conflicts that are being seen. And yeah, so here we go. So, as most of you all know, we have been following HB 4153, the quote farm store bill. FOF has had a difficult position on this bill because we have folks on one side who are saying this bill does not go far enough, that it doesn't open opportunities to all farmers equally, and that if we're going to expand opportunities at farm stands and create this farm store, it needs to be open to everyone. And then we have folks on the other side who say that this farm store concept, and sometimes both, you can hold both of these opinions at the same time, and they're not contradictory. But it's also the opinion of FOF's base and FOF in general that the farm store permit as written in 4153 is counter to the ethos of the farm stand statute as a whole and the use of EFU zone land. So where we are with this, unfortunately, this bill as amended is moving forward. That was made clear to us yesterday when it passed out of capital construction on Friday and passed out of the full Ways and Means Committee with dissenting voices. We thank Representative Sanchez and Senator Neron-Mislin for speaking up in opposition to this bill, saying that, hey, there is no reason to push through not only an imperfect, but a unwalk-backable solution at this moment. So this did pass out of Ways and Means yesterday and is moving to floor votes. We're going to talk about what you can do in a moment. But the reasons that we are really, really concerned about this hasty action and want to point out that there were many, many flaws in the process that got us here. And in fact, the process felt very predetermined on our end. This was developed by the Association of Oregon Counties and the Property Owners Association. They had an advisory committee of 12 farmers who currently have farm stands. There are, 35,000 farms in the state. FOF represents about 1,600 agricultural producers. the Property Owners Association is not a farm group. They are a group that represents private property owners of all types. They had some input from farmers who would be benefited by this bill, and I understand that there are farmers who will be benefited by this bill, but they did not include voices like ours or voices like larger natural resource land use groups in the conversation. And this bill goes far and beyond anything that we would have said is a good idea during that drafting process. We were then asked to provide feedback. We did provide feedback several times. It was not meaningfully incorporated. We also have an amendment that we drafted as a solution to put forward. That solution was sent to the committee chairs of the House Ag Committee where this began. They held our amendment for 4 days. In a short session, 4 days is very long. And then they did not give us any indication of whether they were or not they were putting it in. We were told we needed to go through the chairs of that committee. When it became clear that they were not going to take action on our amendment and were not acting in good faith, we found another member to put that in. And so it was on the record by the time of the work session, and then we were accused of not giving people enough time to review it. So there are some process things that we think are very unusual. This was then passed out to Ways and Means, although it does not have a meaningful fiscal impact. This should have gone to the Senate Natural Resources Committee, where these types of decisions about our natural resource lands, our agricultural future as a state are usually discussed. There was not meaningful discussion in a Senate Policy Committee. And then also, it was not assigned to the Natural Resource Subcommittee of Ways and Means. It was assigned to the Capital Construction Subcommittee of Ways and Means for an expedited political process. So FOF has some big problems with how this bill was put through, how the 70% of testimony, which amounts to 1,100 pieces of written testimony on the record, are in opposition to this bill, but it's being put through anyway without meaningful revision and at the expense of the smallest farms in our state. So, although this benefits some current landholders, we do not believe that this is good for the future of farming in Oregon. First of all, the new permissions in the farm store permit are not open to folks who do not meet the acreage and revenue requirements in their eligibility criteria. So, although there are benefits that we have advocated for, including allowing ticketed educational events and farm to table dinners and clarifications around producer process exemption products, those things are not open to everyone. They're only open to the people who qualify for this new farm store permit. Also, this allows you to build a 10,000 square foot event and retail building on EFU zone land. That is not something that was easily done before, and it will increase the value of EFU zone land. If there is a 10,000 square foot building built for the purposes described in the farm store permit of this bill, it is unquestionable that that will increase the value of the farmland by several $100,000s in many cases. And that is not something that most of the folks who are buying land to keep it in production can accommodate. It was also recently pointed out to us that FSA does not look at agritourism income when determining your eligibility for a loan. They are looking at farm business income. And so that means that these lands that are, people are establishing these agritourism businesses on, these farm stores, that people who are relying on FSA loan products for land purchase, which is, the financial product designed for land purchase for agricultural purposes in our country, and is the lowest interest option in most cases, and the only thing a lot of our farmers can afford. They will not be able to take into account income from those buildings when they're determining whether or not that FSA loan is going to say that they, can generate enough farm income. So they're going to have blended loans, higher interest rates, and more financial risk. And it may benefit a small group of people now. It is not the right choice for Oregon in the future if we want to keep our agricultural lands in production. It's not sustainable. And we have been saying this the entire time, and it's very, very frustrating that folks have only listened to half of what we said about whether or not this was good for small farmers. It's also not good for the future of Oregon farming. And we want to make that point very clearly. So thank you all. I know I'm talking to folks who are listening to this on our YouTube channel or folks who are in the room today, and you probably have heard this before, but I just want to make it clear that the Dash 3 amendment did not solve our problems on this, and just including current law as another alternative is not going to mitigate the risk that the farm store permits as written have put to our EFU and farm forest zone lands. So what you can do right now is that we have a form that will make it very easy for folks to put a message out to their elected officials here in Oregon. Because this is heading to a floor vote, we also have some legislators who will be carrying floor letters and will be talking about this on the floor and saying how much of a risk that this poses to the EFU zone lands, that there were other alternatives that were not discussed, that the process here was exclusionary and predetermined, and that we want to have a further conversation about this, and that the majority of people involved in the discussion do not agree that this is the right path forward. Not to mention, if we were to restrict the access or the land use that is being allowed here in HB 4153 in the future, we would trigger something called Measure 56. Measure 56 is a ballot measure that was passed in 1998 that says that every time the state passes a law that restricts or eliminates a use on a specific zoning of land, the state has to pay to notify every landowner of that zoning of land. And in the past, when there have been restrictions or when the Measure 56 has been triggered for EFU and farm forest zone land, years ago, I think that the most recent example was more than 5 years ago, that cost the state $800,000. With the rising costs of everything now, that is going to be close to $1 million. We're going to waste $1 million sending people letters if we need to fix this in a future in in a climate where we don't have enough money to run the services necessary in our state, and we're setting ourselves up to waste $1 million rolling back a bill that 1,100 people have already told you is not the right solution. So we would highly encourage everyone to send a message to their legislator, letting them know that this is coming to the floor for a vote. They will have the opportunity to weigh in on it, that we're watching what people are saying on this bill, that we're paying attention to how you're treating the land use system here in Oregon and how you're respecting the future of agricultural lands. We have those templates for you. Please do customize them and tell your story on this topic. But we wanted to give you somewhere to start from. That link will be shared in the chat, and it can be added to the description of the YouTube video if you would like. And if it's still relevant, the link will still work. So if you're viewing this in the future, please do take action. Okay, 1586. So SB 1586 is the bill that would have brought 1,700 acres in Hillsborough out of rural reserves, and about 350 of it directly into the UGB. This is with the recent amendments, and the rest of it into urban reserves to be brought in later. So taken out of agricultural production either way. This is some of the best soil in our state and therefore in the world, because Oregon is blessed with some very, very high quality agricultural soils. It is coupled with a lot of incentives for high-tech business and advanced manufacturing here in Oregon. So that would be easy to overlook if we weren't paying attention to the fact that this is a parcel of land that Senator Solman has tried to bring into the UGB of Hillsborough 6 times. Well, this is the 6th time, so she's tried 5 times before for different reasons. So this bill, it is not currently scheduled for a work session. It had 3 public hearings. It is not currently scheduled for a work session. As I said, it is very far into the process now, and it is in one of those committees that could still meet. There is no time restriction on the Senate Revenue Committee, so it could join us. It could come back up. We don't see it being scheduled at the moment, but we are looking for this bill or the contents of this bill to come up in any other way throughout the process of reconciling the budget and all of those things. We are keeping an eye out for it, but we don't have any further information right now. Cross your fingers that all of the opposition to this bill, both from the land use side and from labor on the tax credit sides for those high-tech advanced manufacturing industries that do not generate jobs and take a lot of resources out of a community. That has been very clear to the legislators involved that there is opposition on many different aspects of this bill. So we don't see it moving forward right now. That doesn't mean that it won't. So we're keeping an eye out. Okay, budget reduction packages. Gosh, we are moving so quick today. Okay, so what we have seen is that it's better news than we thought for natural resource agencies. Um, when we saw those budget reduction packages at the beginning of the session, that was at the governor's direction. They were asked to put together 5% cuts, and they were pretty deep. We released a letter that more than 100 of you all signed on to. Thank you so much. To make sure that folks knew that natural resource agencies do really critical work and we should not be cutting their budgets without consideration. So, what I have seen, they are having I believe that the Ways and Means hearing is today, at 3 o'clock. And the bill that they are working from, let me move over here. Can you all see the spreadsheet that I just pulled up? Yes? Cool. So what we are looking at here is the meeting materials for the Ways and Means meeting that is happening this afternoon. This is the natural resource program area. We are seeing only one line item from ODA for vacancy savings. That is much, much lower than the multiple program line items that we were seeing before. Of course, I don't know exactly which vacant positions make up the vacancy savings because all we see here is vacancy savings, but it is much lower than we were anticipating at the beginning of the legislative session when we were seeing cuts in the ag water quality program, the organics program, state meat inspection program. We were seeing cuts for vacancy savings in pesticide monitoring and control, all of those kinds of things. So that's much, much lower. So that is a positive for us. Then if we look down, well, there's also some vacancy savings in DEQ, DLCD, and we look down, there are still some services and supplies reductions in the WRD, the Water Resources Division Department. Not vacancy savings, but cost savings, budget reductions. So that represents some service and supplies reductions. I don't know exactly which programs these are, but this is still much, much lower than we thought it would be at the beginning of the session. So that is a good sign that we are not seeing the steep reductions that we did before. This budget also does not mention at all any of the higher education, the HEC savings, and it does not mention OSU statewides by name anywhere in this, or it doesn't mention OSU as an entity anywhere in this document on the budget reductions. So this is the latest that I have. I am going to continue monitoring, and I want to make sure before saying definitively that there will be no cuts to OSU statewide. Obviously, we don't want to say that without knowing for sure because those programs are so important. But I don't see them in the reduction packages that are going to be discussed at 3 o'clock today. We will issue a correction if I find them later. But yes, we will keep you posted, but it is better news than we thought. This is, I don't think that programs will be eliminated based on this budget reduction package. So that's very heartening. All right. Well, I can't believe that at the end of the session, we're finishing early. But that is all of the updates that I have for you right now. We can stop the recording and have anyone ask questions